Here I am. Hello. Not situated. Should have done that before I go live. Here I am. Hi, everybody. It's pretty good. How are you? Maybe a little closer. Maybe you can hear me better. Welcome to Frankenstein Tea, a daily short story program for adult listeners. With me, Kristen. Oh, I can't get my foot up at this table. I'm Kristen. There I go. I'm the library director for the Island Free Library. That is the public library on Block Island, a small island off the coast of Rhode Island. And I read short stories almost every day, sometimes not on my 2 days off, which has been happening more and more. I was better about that in the beginning when I had good internet at home, but the internet has been so bad lately that I can't connect. But anyway, I'm back at work today. Tuesday, February 23rd, 2021, and we are celebrating Black History Month through this program, and as well as on our Facebook page with another celebratory program that we're running. We post a American Black poet every day and a piece of their poetry. And that's been a really beautifully curated program on our Facebook page. I hope that you check that out and enjoy those poems. Hi to my dad who just signed on, and maybe hi to Dad and Maddie. Maybe she listens too. I didn't realize that, but I heard that. I heard a little inkling of that. So maybe she's out there too. Hi, Maddie. Let's see. You know, that ups my numbers. I should be counting 2 for people that are out there that have 2 listeners in their homes. We keep statistics, so it's a funny thought I'm having here. Anyway, I hope everybody's well. I hope that you're getting your vaccines. I hope vaccines are moving throughout everybody's community and people are getting them and feeling good about that. And, this morning, let's see. So on Saturday, a lot of Islanders were vaccinated. 200 people got the vaccine on Saturday, which is great. Great work. We saw a lot of praise and gratitude to all the volunteers that made that happen out here on Block Island. And so, immediately people come into the library this morning. It's the first time we've been open since they've been vaccinated. And they want to have group meetings and they think they should be able to do this and that. Not happening, right? No, not happening. It's great you're getting vaccinated, but not everybody is. Libraries are continue to be in phase 3 of operation in Rhode Island. If you are a Rhode Islander, we are all still in phase 3. Even though vaccinations are happening, we are in phase 3. Nothing is changing. You can come into this building. You can come in for 15 minutes at a time to browse. If you need a computer for longer than 15 minutes, you can stay for 30 minutes. That's it. Still the same. And we will remain that for at least a month. I just was at a statewide meeting yesterday. So we're like that for another month. And that's a good thing, right? There's variants happening. That one of those variants has showed up in Rhode Island. Not everybody is vaccinated. Certainly one shot is not both shots. So, it's okay. I mean, I know we're anxious to go back to whatever we're going back to, which I'm not even sure what that is, but we're not there yet. And so hang tight and get some tea and sit back and enjoy today's story. How's that for an introduction? Hang in there. We're not through it yet. Okay, so I'm going to read from Black American Short Stories, A Century of the Best. It is part of this library's collection. Black American Short Stories, published by Hill and Wang, a division of Farrar, Straus, and Giroux out of New York. Originally published in 1966, copyrighted again in 1993. I am reading a story published. What's the name of my story? Let's see if I can find it. Hang in there, hold on. On Trains. So I'm reading On Trains today from Hue and Cry. I don't know what that was. It's either a book or a magazine, I believe. From Hue and Cry by James Allen McPherson, copyright 1968, 1969. It has reprinted by permission of Little Brown and Company. Maybe Hue and Cry was a book by James Allen McPherson. It sounds like it was. So from James Allen McPherson's book, Hue and Cry, copyright 1968, Little Brown and Company, I am reading On Trains. The waiters say she got on the train in Chicago after transferring from Dearborn Station. She was plump and matronly, and her glasses were tinted so that she might have been a tourist seeking protection from the sun. But there was neither sun nor fresh air on the train, and she was very pale and a little wrinkled, the way clerks or indoor people grow after many years of their protected, colorless kind of life. She was, indeed, that nondescript type of person one might be aware of, but never really see in a supermarket or at a bargain basement sale, carefully and methodically fingering each item, or on a busy street corner waiting for the light to change, while others, with less conscious respect for the letter of the law, flowed around her. She rode for a whole day before coming into the dining car for a meal. Then she had the $1.95 special. She asked for buttermilk and wanted light bread instead of rolls. The black waiters all grinned at each other in their secret way. When she finished her meal, she sat reading a book and looking out at the yellow and green flatlands of North Dakota until the steward had to ask her to leave so that the waiters could clean up the table for the next sitting. She did not protest, but left with an indignant flourish of her dress. The automatic door to the car leading to the Pullman section hissed angrily behind her. The steward called her a bitch between his teeth, and the waiter who had served her, standing next to the steward with his tray under his arm, grinned broadly, showing his own smoke-stained teeth. But when he saw that she had left no tip, he called her a cheap bitch aloud, and the steward scowled at him. After the last setting, the waiters sat down to eat their dinner. 2 Pullman porters came in with their coffee cans, begging for handouts. They were very greedy and, if given 1 can of free coffee, would continue to come back for more during the length of the trip, as if the first can had entitled them to all that they could drink. They sat down at the waiters' table and watched the waiters eat. The waiters were very greedy too. They ate ravenously. The porters watched the waiters for a while, then one of them closed his eyes and began to doze. The other one, an old fellow with aged and tired eyes like an owl's, looked out at the floating gold of the sunset across the passing wheat fields. He watched until the fields became patterns of black and fading gold. Then he turned to the waiters. "We got an old Southern gal back there," he said. "We had her up here," one of the waiters said between huge mouthfuls of beef. "She got good service, but she didn't leave no tip." "She had me polishing her shoes," the porter said, "but I don't reckon she'll pay off when she gets off. I didn't put much work on it anyway." He stretched his thin legs under the table. They cracked with the sound of dead autumn branches underfoot. A woman in pants passed through the car. Her hair was cut somewhat like the little girl's Dutch boy, and a ringlet of it curled against her cheek. She blew at it out of the corner of her mouth and smiled knowingly at the men seated around the table. Which way to the club car?" she asked. Her lipstick was above the line of her mouth so that it looked like a red mustache. She was not at all pretty and not at all young. "2 cars ahead," one waiter said. She turned to go, took a few steps, and then looked back at the men. The two waiters were looking her over. One porter was still dozing, and the other, the tired one, was seemingly not aware of her. How late does it stay open? Till 12, the same waiter said. Chicago time? Chicago time, the other waiter added. They watched her move through the door. She'll tip big tomorrow, one of them said. Yeah, that old biddy knows where the club car is. She been in there all day. I seen her batting them greasy eyes at John Perry on the bar. Maybe he'll take care of business for her tonight, the tired Pullman porter said. But there was no humor in it, and all of their laughs were only polite. If he does, she'll tip big tomorrow, one of the waiters said again. The porter with the owl eyes pushed the dozing porter. Time to get the beds down, Tim, he said. Tim got up slowly, and they took their coffee cans and trudged down the aisle toward the Pullman section. As they reached the door, it opened, and the lady who had transferred from Dearborn came into the car. The two porters stood on either side of the aisle and let her pass between them. They wore white jackets with silver buttons, which were embossed, Pullman Company. Together with their caps with silver plates, which also read Pullman Porter, and black pants, they looked like two painted black statues before the entrance to some fine suburban home. She did not notice them, but passed directly through the car, leaving behind her a scent of something sweet and strong. When she entered the club car, the woman with the Dutch bob was sitting at the bar talking to John Perry, the bartender, who stood behind the bar leaning with his arms on its waxed red surface. They were very close, and the Dutch woman was smiling mysteriously. There was no one else in the car. The Dearborn lady seated herself at a deuce near the far end of the car and began to stare at John Perry as he said something low and soft and smile-provoking to the painted thing on the stool across from him. The Dearborn lady cleared her throat. John Perry placed his dark, thick hand closer to the other, softer hand on the bar, and did not look up. The painted woman made a throaty chuckle, like the confusing sound one might hear near a car parked by a frog pond on a summer night. I want some service, the lady at the end of the car finally said. I've been here for 10 minutes now, and I want some service. The bartender looked annoyed as he went over to her table. What'll it be, lady? He said. His voice was deep and smooth and almost as greasy as the painted woman's lips, and it had that familiar ring of professional servitude, which is peculiar to small serving people who like their work. I want a Benedictine and brandy. No Benedictine. This is a train, lady. She paused. I'll have a creme de menthe, then. We don't have that neither. Try bourbon and water, honey, the woman at the bar said, and she lifted her glass for the woman to see. He makes it very good. I'm going to have another one myself. She looked at the bartender as she pushed a $5 bill across the bar. Make yourself one, too, she told him. The lady at the deuce looked at her fiercely. She finally ordered a rosé, paid for it, and settled back, taking turns watching the immediate reflections of the two at the bar in the window next to her and the darkness of the passing countryside beyond their reflections. The train lumbered on, and it made the only noise, save for an occasional giggle and a deep-throated chuckle from the bar. Finally, the woman got up from the stool and said, "See you later on," to the bartender. She said it with a contrived, unnatural selectivity and took her time moving out of the car. The Dearborn lady, still seated at the table and facing the window, saw it all through her tinted glasses. The bartender began to whistle as he washed the glasses. He was a robust fellow, but he moved very gracefully behind the bar, like a dancer. Still, he splashed a great deal of water on the floor. He glanced over at the lady once or twice, as she in turn looked alternately at the darkness behind the thick window glass and at him. But only her eyes moved. Then the man moved out from behind the bar and came toward her. She stiffened and gathered her purse and got up, all very quickly. He was wiping the tables and whistling as she hurried out of the car. 2. In the Pullman car, the porter was still making the beds. He shuffled from one roomette to the next, not wasting a single step. The occupants came out of their rooms and stood in the hall while he swished and tucked their sheets. Then he knocked on the Dearborn lady's door. "Porter," he barked the way a street corner concessionaire would say, "Hot dogs." There was no answer, so he went in and began turning down the bed. She came up behind him and watched his back as he moved about the small compartment. She was breathing very hard. "What time do you lock the doors in the car?" she asked. "The doors ain't never locked," he said, not turning to face her. "How do you keep people out?" She paused and then said, "My luggage is in the hall. It's very expensive." "I'll watch out for it. I sit up all night." "Inside the car?" "Yes, ma'am." "But we have to sleep. We have to sleep in here," she said. She was very excited now. "Yes, ma'am." He did not stop his work, nor did he look at her, but answered her questions and made the bed with a proficiency and cool detachment of one used to confronting stupidity in the intelligent. It was bargained and paid for in the price of her ticket, and his was a patient and polite endurance of her right to be stupid. "I'm a Pullman porter," he said. "I've been a Pullman porter for 43 years. He had finished the bed and he smoothed down a light ripple in the red blanket. His hands were rough and wrinkled, and the backs of his fingers were very black. 43 years, he repeated reminiscently, half to himself. She could not see his eyes. "Well, you can't stay in here tonight," she said, and moved into the small compartment as if to possess it entirely with her presence. The porter backed out. "It's my job," he said. She was extremely nervous now and ran her hands lightly over the sides of her dress. Her hands stuck to the thin silk. "You go get the Pullman conductor," she said. "I can talk to him." She began to pace up and down the little length of the roomette. The porter returned in a few minutes with the Pullman conductor. The blue-suited conductor entered the compartment while the porter stood outside the door and watched them, his dark old eyes flashing from one face to the other. "He sits up in the car, lady," the conductor said. "It's his job. He has to be here if anyone rings for him at night." The conductor was very irritated. He had already started to undress for bed, and his tie hung loosely about his neck. The lady was perspiring now, and the little beads of sweat glistened on her temples in the glare of the white light overhead. "I can't, and I won't sleep in the same car with that gentleman." "That's your business if you don't sleep, lady," the conductor said. "He stays in the car." The conductor was very mad now. The lines in his forehead grew very red, and his nose, which was small, grew larger and redder with his controlled breathing. "We have a right to sleep here without these people coming in and doing things." "What's he done to you, lady?" "He's black. He's black." And she said it with the exasperation and utter defeat of an inexperienced teacher whose patience has been exhausted and who can only stamp the right answer into the mind of a stupid child. "He's a porter," the conductor said. The porter, who stood all the while like a child waiting for punishment, seemed to droop and wither and grow smaller, and his eyes, which had only minutes before flashed brightly from the face of the conductor to the enraged face of the lady, now seemed to dull and turn inward, as only those who have learned to suffer silently can turn their eyes inward. He was a very old man, and he grew older, even older than his occupation or the oldest and most obsequious Pullman porter. People were looking out of their compartments, and the Dearborn lady, hearing them, raised her voice in a plea. He sleeps in here. He sleeps in here with us, she shouted to them. Down the hall, the painted woman opened the door to compartment G and listened and smiled and shook her head and then closed the door again. And the rest listened and weighed the thought, which was a new one deserving some consideration. But the conductor said that it was necessary for comfort, and they agreed and returned to their rooms. Only the porter stood outside the door looking guilty. It was finally decided that the Dearborn lady would take a seat in the coaches for the night. She wanted it that way. The porter would sleep as he had always slept, sitting up in the back of the car with his eyes closed and his mind awake and his coffee can by his side and the small bright night light over his bowed head and his ear next to the buzzer in case someone should ring. Everyone agreed that it was the way things should be. It was necessary for comfort, and besides, it was his job. And later that night, one John Perry, the bartender, who danced and splashed a great deal of water when he washed glasses, stole into the dark sleeping car. He paused for a minute before the bent old man on the porter's seat. The coffee can had fallen over on the seat, and John Perry picked it up and placed it on the floor next to the old man's feet. Then he knocked very softly on the door to compartment G, and after a while it was opened and quickly closed behind him. James Allen McPherson, that short story, On Trains. I got another good one on tap for tomorrow. I hope you come back. Thanks so much for coming today. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Be well. Stay masked. Eat right, sleep right. Stay warm. It was sunny and lovely here today, but it's gray now. It's a gray day in Rhode Island. But we had some beautiful, spectacular moments in the last few days, and they'll carry us forward. I hope the same for you. Thanks again for coming. See you tomorrow. Bye. Peace.